Shalom, family. How's everybody doing? All right, good, good, good. So we're back again with our closing class, okay? Our Sound Sabbath service, okay? Our Sound Sabbath class. And for this evening's lesson, we're going to be covering Christmas, origin and history. This is Christmas part 1, origin and history, okay? So because we know many people are about to celebrate Christmas. But according to the Bible and history, Christmas, although contrary to what people would think the name stands for, even though the truth is in the name, is not scriptural. It is not biblical. It is not righteous according to the Most High God. And I'm here to give you that origin history so you can have that to share that with others. So let's get into it. Lesson objective. By the end of this lesson, you should have an in-depth understanding on the history and origin of Christmas. This lesson is cumulative in nature, so please pay attention to the content, as some things I will mention vaguely and then go in-depth later, or vice versa, okay? Let's get 2 Corinthians chapter 11 and verse 14. Let's get the book of 2 Corinthians, and we're going to get chapter 11, and we are going to read verse 14. The book of 2 Corinthians chapter 11 and verse 14, and it reads, and it says, and no marvel, tomorrow is to be in awe, stupor, wonder, amazement. At what? And no marvel, for Satan, in the Hebrew Hashatan, okay, Satan, which means adversary, so adverse to righteousness, that's what he's adverse to, adversary. So for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. Why I say transformed? Because he's not an angel of light. He's not a messenger of light. He's an angel of darkness, okay, not light, angel of evil and not good. But yet and still, he tries to appear good, tries to appear right. Christmas is something that seems right. It seems good. But yet and still, according to the Most High, it is evil. It is witchcraft, sorcery, satanic. All of those things correspond to it, thus saith the Lord. So we read and find out according to the history and according to scriptures. Because you have to understand, even as the image depicted, that we're taught evil to be something aligned or exclusive to things such as someone is a murderer. Oh, that's evil. They're evil. Someone is a rapist. Oh, that's evil. They're evil. Don't deal with that. But we can forget that evil isn't just limited to things like that or of that nature. Keeping Christmas, you're evil. You're performing things that are evil, even if you don't murder, you don't rape. But these things you do that God says is evil. And if you practice them, then you become aligned with evil. You're practicing evil. You become evil. Most High God is calling you now, be good. Do good. Be righteous, and that's being right according to his word. So remember the key with the devil, with Satan, he is going to come aligned, not in a red cape and pointy horns. You're not going to see that. But he's going to come in a form of deception and a form of light to deceive you to go in a way that appears to be good, but really isn't. Okay? Now let's get origin and history. So the festivals of Rome are innumerable, okay? The festivals of Rome. Rome was a kingdom that was primarily ran by what people? The Caucasian people. The forefathers and foremothers of the people who primarily run this country and other similar countries, okay? So, but it said the festivals of Rome are innumerable, many of which are still celebrated today. But it says, but 5 of the most important may be singled out for elucidation. Elucidation is, clarify or make clear. It says, there's Christmas Day, Lady Day, Easter, the Nativity of St. John, and the Feast of the Assumption. For those who may not know, Lady Day is when the angel Gabriel appeared unto Mary, visited and appeared unto Mary, and that's celebrated by March 25th. The Feast of the Assumption is Mary being taken up into heaven. That's about August 15th. So, reading on, and it says, each and all of these can be proved to be Babylonian. Okay, not something that someone is just speculating, just believing, but proof. There's evidence there. So, but it's all a matter of, is that evidence something that you want to hear? And that you're willing to hear. Let's continue on. It was no mere astronomic festival then that the pagans celebrated at the winter solstice. What time we coming up now? Same time. That festival at Rome was called the Feast of Saturn. So, of course, people are looking for, some are just looking for, well, I'm looking for Christmas. I didn't see they didn't keep Christmas, during the time of the Greeks or Romans. No, they did not keep it under that name. You have to do more history. So, and research more. As that festival at Rome was called the Feast of Saturn. In the mode in which it was celebrated there showed whence it had been derived. What does that mean? That means if you really take time to sincerely look at the customs and practices kept then and now, you will see how it aligns. You will see it's the same thing, just under a new name. No different than at times you have streets, freeways, monuments that have a name and they change it to a name of another president, governor, senator, celebrity, or official who may have done something deemed worthy in the eyes of those in power to say, hey, we'll give this person credit and we'll name this after them and memorialize them in their name, in their honor. Similar thing here with the change of festivals. Now it says the feast, as regulated by Caligula, and that's Caligula, Caesar, one of the Caesars, lasted 5 days. Loose reins were given to drunkenness and revelry. Slaves had a temporary emancipation. And these are things that you're seeing done today. The same things you're seeing done. When it comes down to many of these so-called holidays, because you get the word holiday from the word holy day. But these are not holy days as what's aligned with scriptures. Most High God gives us holy days to keep, and this is not one of them that you read within the scriptures. So, reading on, it says, loose reins were given to drunkenness and revelry. People like to drink. They get drunk and have fun, so to speak, doing things that oftentimes are not deemed lawful. So, drunkenness being one of them, for reasons obvious and some not so obvious, which at a later time we'll cover, or at a different time we'll cover. So as the slaves had temporary emancipation, temporary freedom. That's what you get. You're a slave now. It's called an employee. Still a slave. So you can't take off all time to just show up when you want to. No, you're regulated. We need you to come in at these times, be here at these times. And as such, many people, when these so-called holidays come up, when these folly days come up, what happens? Most of the time, they give you the day off to celebrate, to have freedom. So that way, you're more prone to celebrate because you have the availability of time. So when someone asks, well, what you doing? Or I got the day off. Man, just come on and come down. Just come hang with us. Party, chill, eat, have a good time. Sounds innocent, one would think. But yet and still, it's not innocent according to the Most High God. It may be innocent to your mom, dad, brother, sister, uncle, auntie, your co-worker, your boss. Oh, it's for the kids. Oh, it's just for fun. Oh, it's about family. Not according to the Most High God. Let's continue. It said, and use all manner of freedoms with their masters. Subsequently, the number of the days of the Saturnalia was increased to 7. They do that at times, increase or decrease the days accordingly to celebrate. If Saturn or Chronos was, as we have seen reason to believe, Pheronius, the emancipator, the temporary emancipation of the slaves at his festival was exactly in keeping with his supposed character. And the source that was used, which would be a common source throughout this, lesson in this class, is the two Babylons, or the papal worship proved to be the worship of Nimrod and his wife by Reverend Alexander Hislop. So, season 2, Yule, the god is reborn. The Yuletide celebration has its roots in the ancient Roman observance of Saturnalia. Okay? And this is coming from a book that I got from a colleague, an associate of mine, who is a pagan, who is a Wiccan. Okay? And he learned he does these practices in the witchcraft associated with them, so that he learned from his Celtic or Celtic roots from his grandparents on how to perform the rituals according to many of the things that you keep, but sincerely as a pagan, not a mixture of Christianity with paganism, which is what many celebrate today. That's where you get Christmas, because Constantine didn't want a civil war to break out in his kingdom, so he wanted to combine the beliefs of the pagans and the Christians to have a sense of unity. But that we cannot do according to scriptures. We can't take something evil and call it good, or take something good and call it evil. That's something wicked according to the Most High. So although it gives a form of peace unto man, it doesn't give peace with the Most High God. So the Yuletide celebration has its roots in the ancient Roman observance of Saturnalia, which was held from December 17th until December 25th. A lot of times these things come from something. They have a history, okay? Let me continue with the next slide. The Roman Saturnalia was a carnival in the truest sense. Carnival being all these things were going, all these carnal pleasures and a mixture of things. So in the truest sense, its participants, those that are choosing to be there, partaking in carnal as well as carnivorous pleasures. The drinking of alcoholic beverages factored heavily into Saturnalia celebrations, to the point where the holiday became synonymous with debauchery and lewd behavior. Saturnalia celebration. So if you see the picture here, it's showing you an image of a Saturnalia celebration, okay? And you can see a lot of the debauchery and lewd behavior depicted in the image that was practiced then, and many still practice to this day. Legends and lore, God of light, God of truth. The worship of the god Mithras is thought to have arrived in Rome from its Persian origins. The celebration of the return of the light is also a metaphor for conception. Sirius was called Sothis by the Egyptians, and the appearance of Sothis in the dawn sky predicted the flooding of the Nile, upon which Egypt's economy depended. And that's from another book, the book that I referenced earlier with the associate that I have that I know that is a Wiccan. It's called the Wiccan Year, okay? So the Wiccan Year spells, rituals, holiday celebrations that shows you the history and how all these customs and things that you're doing as pertaining to it, the rituals that are done, the witchcraft that's done, which it all stems from. And it's by Judy Ann Knock, okay? and she's also the author of a witch's grimoire. Okay, because if you're celebrating, you're practicing witchcraft. So it all comes down to it, and all has the other things and the other holidays, many of them that stem from witchcraft that you celebrate. So, and this is from again the Wiccan year, Judean Knock. So, Mithra. Okay, and here's a picture that you can see of Mithra or Mithras, and you can even see the picture of this sun, okay, around the head that you can see in the one, on the side of the screen, on the left side of the screen. More on Mithra. Mithra, also spelled Mithras or Sanskrit Mitra. In ancient Indo-Iranian mythology, the god of light, whose cult spread from India. See, everyone say, oh, they think we're in a cult for not doing these things, yet not understanding that you're in a cult for doing these things. And so, again, and you can label anything as a cult. So, but yet they said whose cult spread from India in the east to as far west as Spain, Great Britain, and Germany, where a lot of Caucasians reside, as we will call them. So, but according to the scriptures, Esau, Edomites, okay, Idumea. And it says, see Mithraism. The first written mention of the Vedic Mitra dates to 1400 BC. His worship spread to Persia, and after the defeat of the Persians by Alexander the Great throughout the Hellenic world. The Hellenic world, the Hellenist world, is where Greek thought and culture started to become the norm, okay, and the language that was spoken. Mithraism, the worship of Mithra, the Iranian god of the sun, justice, contract, and war in pre-Zoroastrian Iran, known as Mithras in the Roman Empire during the 2nd and 3rd centuries AD. This deity was honored as the patron of loyalty to the emperor. After the acceptance of Christianity by the Emperor Constantine in the early 4th century, Mithraism rapidly declined. Mithra was also the god of the sun, of the shining light that beholds everything, and hence was invoked in oaths that the Greeks and Romans considered Mithra as a sun god, and that's from Britannica.com, so which another source will be using often. The Lords of Light. Some of the many names for the solar deity include Apollo, which is Greek, Belinus, Celtic or Celtic, Lula Gifts, British, La Lamafara, Gaelic, Mithras, Roman, Osiris, Egyptian, and Ra, Egyptian. That's page 49 of the Wiccan year. Saturnalia. Saturnus, the god of seed and sowing. Latin Saturn was honored with a festival. In the Roman calendar, the Saturnalia was designated a holy day or holiday on which religious rites were performed. Saturn himself was identified with Kronos and sacrificed to according to Greek ritual, with the head uncovered. After sacrifice at the temple, there was a public banquet, as well as electricinum, a banquet in which an image of the god is placed as if in attendance. Okay. Moving on. The Saturnalia was the most popular holiday of the Roman year, and guess what? It still is. During the holiday, restrictions were relaxed and the social order inverted. Gambling was allowed in public. Slaves were permitted to use dice and did not have to work, just as with many today. Slaves were treated as equals, allowed to wear their master's clothing, and be waited on at mealtime, in remembrance of an earlier golden age thought to have been ushered in by the gods. In the Saturnalia, Lucian, as the god's priest, declared that during my week, the serious is barred, no business allowed, drinking, noise, and games and dice, appointing of kings, and feasting of slaves, singing naked, clapping of frenzied hands, an occasional ducking of corked faces in icy water. Such are the functions over which I preside. Statius recounts a December tipsy with much wine and laughing mirth and wanton wit, remembering the glad festival of our merry Caesar and the banquet's drunken revel. This equality was temporary, of course. If a time of merriment, the season also was an occasion of murder, for murder. And that's from penelope.uchicago.edu on Saturnalia. Saturn, Roman god. Saturn's great festival, the Saturnalia, became the most popular of Roman festivals, and its influence is still felt in the celebration of Christmas and the Western world's New Year. The Saturnalia was originally celebrated on December 17th, but it was later extended to 7 days. It was the merriest festival of the year. All work and business were suspended. Slaves were given temporary freedom. That's from Britannica.com on Saturn. Saturn, the god that is, so-called god. Saturn, Latin Saturnus, in Roman religion, the god of sowing or seed. The Romans equated him with the Greek agricultural deity Kronos. Okay, that's where you get chronograph and time and things, for which we'll cover more as we go into New Year's at a later time. That's from Britannica.com, Saturnalia. Kronos, also spelled Kronos with a C or Kronos with a K. In ancient Greek religion, male deity who was worshipped by the pre-Hellenic population of Greece, but probably was not widely worshipped by the Greeks themselves. He was later identified with the Roman god Saturn. Kronos' functions were connected with agriculture. In Attica, his festival, the Cronia, celebrated the harvest and resembled the Saturnalia. In art, listen to this, pay attention, he was depicted as an old man holding an implement, probably originally a sickle, but interpreted as a harp or curved sword. That's from Britannica.com. And you see a picture or image or depiction of that here. So here you see that he has this sickle here. You see the blade going across over his shoulder. So you see that there, and then you also see him holding a baby, so as well. So, and there'll be more information on that as well. Let's continue. So, this next segment will go into how it is not biblical and it is not the birth of Christ. And first, as to the festival in honor of the birth of Christ, or Christmas, how comes it that that festival was connected with the 25th of December? There is not a word in the scriptures about the precise day of his birth or the time of the year when he was born. What is recorded there implies that at what time soever his birth took place, it could not have been on the 25th of December. At the time that the angel announced his birth to the shepherds of Bethlehem, they were feeding their flocks by night in the open fields. Okay? Very important. Now, as close as you can get to information on his birthday, we get in terms of Luke chapter 2, verse 41 through 42. Okay. Luke chapter 2, verse 41 through 42. And it reads, "Now his parents went to Jerusalem every year at the feast of the Passover." So it's giving you some kind of information. His parents went to Jerusalem, the headquarters of Israel, particularly of the southern kingdom of Israel. It says every year, this was customary. Every year they did this at the feast of the Passover. Okay, Passover begins the first day of unleavened bread. But only the first day is considered Passover and unleavened bread. The Passover ends that first day, and the unleavened bread continues the remainder of the other 6 days. So that's 7 days total of unleavened bread, but 1 day of Passover, which is the first day. More on that in another lesson. Verse 42, and it says, and when he was 12 years old, they went up to Jerusalem after the custom of the feast. So they went every year. This was something that they did normally. But it's given, of course, what would seem as if that his birthday was around that time. So around the time of Passover. So some may say the actual day of Passover, but it could very well be within the season of Passover, being in the spring season. Okay, but that's something that one can, take and apply in that regard as far as getting close. Now, we know for sure Christ did die on Passover. So those things are done in the spirit as well, done intentionally in the spirit by the Most High God. So there could be a chance that just as he died on Passover, and rose during the Feast of Unleavened Bread, that he can very well return around that same time. Okay, very high chance of that, and many in the faith believe that to be so. Let's get John chapter 18 and verse 29. So let's get the book of John chapter 18, and let's read verse 29, and then we're going to read verse 38 through 39. Okay. The book of John chapter 18 and verse 29. Pilate then went out unto them and said, what accusation bring ye against this man? Although Pilate was in a place to where he was a ruler, so it was still a situation where he didn't just try to condemn Christ. He was like, hey, what y'all trying to bring against this man? I don't find anything. Verse 38. Verse 38, and it reads, Pilate said unto him, what is truth? Which even some people may ask, which later on we'll get into. He said, what is truth? And when he had said this, he went out again unto the Jews, and saith unto them, I find in him no fault at all. So he found, like, man, I'm not finding anything in him that is worthy of condemnation. Give verse 39. But ye have a custom that I should release unto you one at the Passover. So let give you a time in which he's being, crucified. So will ye therefore that I release unto you the King of the Jews? So giving him an option. But of course, it was prophesied that our people would think him to be a liar, a blasphemer, false prophet, as they think of even some of us that profess many of the things that I'm teaching you now, and would think delivering us up to death would be what God would want, because we're going against something that they've been taught or believed to be good. Not knowing or understanding it's really bad or evil. Let's get the book of John chapter 19, verse 13 through 14. Book of John chapter 19 and verse 13, and it reads, when Pilate therefore heard that saying, he brought Jesus forth and sat down in the judgment seat in a place that is called the Pavement, but in the Hebrew, Gabbatha. Verse 14, and it was the preparation of the Passover, and about the 6th hour, and he saith unto the Jews, Behold your king. So you have that. Like I said, it was the preparation of the Passover. So now, but he was actually crucified, on the Passover. Now, if you read the whole thing, which for time's sake, we're just getting some of the highlights. Now, let's continue on in the slide. Now, no doubt, the climate of Palestine is not so severe as the climate of this country. But even there, though the heat of the day be considerable, the cold of the night from December to February is very piercing. And it was not the custom for the shepherds of Judea to watch their flocks in the open fields later than about the end of October. Let's get Luke 2:8. Let's get the book of Luke, chapter 2, and let's read verse 8. The book of Luke, chapter 2, and verse 8, and it reads, And there were in the same country, and I can read verse 7 first. I'll start verse 6. And it was that while they were there, the days were accomplished that she should be delivered. That's speaking with Mary, who in the Hebrew, Miriam, would have her child. Her firstborn child, So, because Christ did have siblings. And she brought forth her firstborn son, and wrapped him in swaddling clothes, and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn. Okay, so verse 8, and there were in the same country shepherds abiding in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night. So within that context, it would not have been in the December, February, January, any of those months that Christ would have been born, okay, because you had shepherds keeping their flocks, which they would not have done in the winter season. It's too cold. So that's part of the content that you have to be able to help show and prove that, okay, whatever season you want to believe Christ was born in, it could not have been the winter season. Let's continue on. It is in the last degree incredible then that the birth of Christ could have taken place at the end of December. If people want to go, Christ was born December 25th, with that notion. There is great unanimity among commentators on this point, besides Barnes, Doddridge, Lightfoot, Joseph Scaliger, and Jennings in his Jewish Antiquities, who are all of opinion that December 25th could not be the right time of our Lord's nativity. The celebrated Joseph Mead pronounces a very decisive opinion to the same effect. After a long and careful disquisition on the subject, among other arguments, he adduces the following. At the birth of Christ, every woman and child was to go to be taxed at the city whereto they belonged, whither some had long journeys. But the middle of winter was not fitting for such a business, especially for women with child and children to travel in. That was page 120 of Reverend Alexander Hislop's The Two Babylons. Now let's go back to the story of Luke. Let's get Luke chapter 2, and let's read verse 1 through 5 for that account. So we read verse 6 through 8. Now we're going back and reading 1 through 5. Book of Luke chapter 2 and verse 1. And it came to pass in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. Okay, so this also gives context to when you're dealing with the time of who was in power when Christ was born. So that all the world should be taxed. even like we're taxed today. It also shows you who you're under captivity under, who you got to pay taxes to, who you're paying tribute to. That's who has you captive. Verse 2, and this taxing was first made when Cyrenius was governor of Syria. And all went to be taxed, every one into his own city. And Joseph also went up from Galilee out of the city of Nazareth into Judea unto the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David. Verse 5, to be taxed with Mary, his espoused wife, being great with child. Okay? So that would not, as you read, as we just read, they had to be taxed, but the winter season would not be a fitting season for that to happen. Okay? So now, let's continue. Spring is the season when the cherry trees and cottonwoods bloom. For Barbara Halpern, spring is also the season when her work week booms to 80 hours or more. Accompanying those long work hours are the colds, migraines, dizziness, and weight swings that plague Halpern and her colleagues at her small accounting firm in suburban Connecticut. Everyone is run down and susceptible. Halpern, owner of Halpern and Amp Associates, tells WebMD, we hate the spring and nice weather. Tax preppers like Halpern may bear the brunt of tax time stress. So, and that's from WebMD, and I got that because it's showing you tax time is associated with what season? Spring, not winter. Let's get another source. Karen Gallivan of McGladrey LLP says her fall hours sometimes exceed those of the traditional spring tax season. And that's from chicagobusiness.com. Okay, so you're seeing a pattern there. So now reading on, therefore, Christ could not be born in the depth of winter. Again, at the time of Christ's birth, the shepherds lay abroad, watching with their flocks in the nighttime. But this was not likely to be in the middle of winter. And if any shall think the winter wind was not so extreme in these parts, let him remember the words of Christ in the gospel. Pray that your flight be not in the winter. If the winter was so bad a time to flee in, it seems no fit time for shepherds to lie in the fields in, and women and children to travel in. Indeed, it is admitted by the most learned and candid writers of all parties that the day of our Lord's birth cannot be determined, and that within the Christian church, no such festival as Christmas was ever heard of till the 3rd century, and that not till the 4th century AD was far advanced did it gain much observance. So what are you seeing here? You're seeing a pattern. You're seeing a few things. And let it be known, look, if you want to keep everything as dry and cut as what we can find it from other scholars and other researchers, we cannot definitively prove what day Christ was born. So we can't say it was January 3rd, March 25th, August 4th. We can't say that for a fact. So, but what we can say, it was not December 25th. It wasn't even in the season of winter. We can all agree on that. So that's something to be known for a fact. And furthermore, like it also dealt with, the celebration of Christmas, even knowing anything by that name, wasn't until far after Christ had lived and died. So it wasn't the 1st century, wasn't the 2nd century AD, but rather really starting and beginning in the 3rd century, didn't gain traction until the 4th century. Meaning what? Early Christians, especially the disciples and apostles, they wasn't celebrating anything of that nature. So You don't read where they celebrate anything of that nature in the scriptures. Let's continue. How then did the Roman Church fix on December the 25th as Christmas Day? Why thus? Long before the 4th century and long before the Christian era itself, a festival was celebrated among the heathen at the precise time of the year in honor of the birth of the sun, the Babylonian queen of heaven. And it may fairly be presumed that in order to consolate the heathen and to swell the number of the nominal adherents of Christianity, the same festival was adopted by the Roman Church, giving it only the name of Christ. This tendency on the part of Christians to meet paganism halfway was very early developed. And we find Tertullian, even in his day, about the year 230, bitterly lamenting the inconsistency of the disciples of Christ in this respect, and contrasting it with the strict fidelity of the pagans to their own superstition. And so similar today, same as we do, you have people who claim to be Christians, claim to be followers of Christ, believers of the God of the Bible, but yet and still, you're always celebrating things that are mixed with paganism, riddled with paganism. Whereas pagans, sincere, strict ones, you don't see them trying to mix with Christianity. There's a difference. Because you have to wonder, everybody dang near celebrates Christmas. Doesn't matter if they're Christian, Catholic, atheist, they'll celebrate some Christmas. Why? Because they got a lot of mixture going on in there. And some are aware of the roots and say, I know what I'm keeping. Do you know what you're keeping? I know what I'm keeping. Do you know why you're keeping it? Everybody doesn't know. Let's continue. It reads, by us, says he, who are strangers to Sabbaths and new moons and festivals once acceptable to God, the Saturnalia, the feast of January, the Brumalia and Matronalia are now frequented. Gifts are carried to and fro. New Year's Day presents are made with din, and sports and banquets are celebrated with uproar. Oh, how much more faithful are the heathen to their religion, who take special care to adopt no solemnity from the Christians. That's what it's the same today. People now, most people today are strangers to Sabbaths, new moons, tabernacles, Pentecost. They're strangers to that. What is that? I don't know what that is. Oh, but they know what Christmas is. They know what New Year's is. They know what Halloween and Thanksgiving is. Look at that. That's how the flip is. But pagans make sure they keep their stuff how it is. They don't taint it. But Christians, Catholics, they taint their stuff. Let's continue. Upright men strive to stem the tide, but in spite of all their efforts, the apostasy went on, till the church, with the exception of a small remnant, was submerged under pagan superstition. That's what you have today. Church has been submerged, engulfed by paganism. By paganism. You'd be wondering what some of these things have to do and how they go together. You know, when you look at some of these holidays, what does this have to do with this? Look at some of that. You know, even the other one like Easter. What does a bunny laying eggs, which bunnies don't do, have to do with the resurrection of Christ? Something strange. One of these things is not like the other. One of these things is not quite the same. One of these things is false. Let's continue. That Christmas was originally a pagan festival is beyond all doubt. The time of the year and the ceremonies with which it is still celebrated prove its origin. In Egypt, the son of Isis, the Egyptian title for the Queen of Heaven, was born at this very time, about the time of the winter solstice, the very name by which Christmas is popularly known among ourselves. Yule Day proves at once its pagan and Babylonian origin. Yule is the Chaldean name for an infant or little child, and at the 25th of December was called by our pagan Anglo-Saxon ancestors Yule Day, or the Child's Day. In the night that preceded it, which you know is Christmas Eve, Mother's Night, long before they came in contact with Christianity, that sufficiently proves its real character. Let's continue. Far and wide in the realms of paganism was this birthday observed. This festival has been commonly believed to have had only an astronomical character, referring simply to the completion of the sun's yearly course and the commencement of a new cycle. But there is undoubtedly evidence that the festival in question had a much higher reference than this, that it commemorated not merely the figurative birthday of the sun in the renewal of its course, but the birthday of the grand deliverer. Among the Sabians of Arabia, who regarded the moon and not the sun as the visible symbol of the favorite object of their idolatry, the same period was observed as the birth festival. Thus, we read in Stanley's Sabian philosophy, on the 24th of the 10th month, that is December, according to our reckoning, the Arabians celebrated the birthday of the Lord, that is, the moon. And of course, you may think, oh, why did they say the 10th month instead of the 12th? Well, you have to remember, the calendar we follow is the Gregorian calendar, which we'll get more into at a later time. So, and it stems from the Julian calendar. So, that was enacted during the time of Julius Caesar. And with that, the name of the months are really hidden within the name and the number. So, sept, septum, Latin for 7, oct, octagon, octopus, 8, nov, novum, Latin for 9, and des, decimal, 10. That's why they're saying the 10th month, December the 10th month. More on that another time. Continuing on. The Lord Moon was the great object of Arabian worship, and that Lord Moon, according to them, was born on the 24th of December, which clearly shows that the birth which they celebrated had no necessary connection with the course of the sun. It is worthy of special note, too, that if Christmas Day among the ancient Saxons of this island was observed to celebrate the birth of any lord of the host of heaven, the case must have been precisely the same here as it was in Arabia. The Saxons, as is well known, regarded the sun as a female divinity and the moon as a male. Sharon Turner. Turner cites an Arabic poem which proves that a female sun and a masculine moon were recognized in Arabia as well as by the Anglo-Saxons. It must have been the birthday of the Lord Moon, therefore, and not of the sun, that was celebrated by them on the 25th of December, even as the birthday of the same Lord Moon was observed by the Arabians on the 24th of December. Continuing on. Therefore, the 25th of December, the day that was observed at Rome as the day when the victorious God reappeared on earth, was held at the Natalis Invicti Solis, that is, the birthday of the unconquered sun, which is, that you see here depicted with this woman, who is the mother, and the child, okay, the son, her son, This is the God that you're dealing with, that you're made to believe, oh, that's Mary in Christ. No, it's not. That is not the proper origin. There can be no doubt then that the pagan festival at the winter solstice, in other words, Christmas, was held in honor of the birth of the Babylonian Messiah. And that's from The Two Babylons by Reverend Alexander Hislop. Let's continue. The winter solstice, along with Samhain or Samhain, the winter solstice and the observance of Yule are probably the most widely celebrated today of the ancient rituals. Although today Yule is linked to the Christian observance of the Nativity, there is no biblical or historical evidence that Christ was born on Christmas. Rather, December 25th was long held to be the celebration day of the Roman deity Mithras. It is believed that the coat of Sol Invictus, or invisible sun, with which Mithras is often associated, may have even predated the Romans by several hundred years. And that's from The Wiccan Year by Judy Ann Knock. Now, for our last main segment, let's get a little more info on the nativity scene. This picture is the depiction of the nativity scene by Greg Olson. Let's get Luke. Luke chapter 2 and verse 7, and let's read that. Luke chapter 2 and verse 7, and it reads, "And she brought forth her firstborn son, and wrapped him in swaddling clothes, and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn." So, when you look up the Strong's Concordance definition of manger, it gives you G, which stands for Greek, 5336, which is fatne, which means a crib. Okay, that's what we're doing. So Christ was laid in a crib. He was in a crib. Let's continue. Let's get the book of Matthew, chapter 2, verse 7 through 11. Let's get the book of Matthew, chapter 2, and let's read verse 7 through 11. Book of Matthew, chapter 2, and verse 7, and it reads, "Then Herod, when he had privily called the wise men, inquired of them diligently what time the star appeared." So you had Herod, who was governor at this point in time over the Jews, although not being a Jew by bloodline, but rather by religious practice, and marrying into the family as per the Herodian dynasty, married into, some Israelite blood. So it said, "Then Herod, when he had privily called the wise men, he called them unto him to, see." And he called, it wasn't three, he just called some wise men. It doesn't give a number. That's another thing people say, the three wise men. It doesn't give you three. It just says the wise men. He inquired of them diligently. He asked them, "Hey, what's going on? This person you said, Christ, where's his whereabouts? What's up?" Because he was informed that this person will be king of the Jews. He's like, "Sure, I'm king. I'm governor. I'm ruler over them," thinking this was going to be the end of his empire and his rule. That's why he was in fear. So, at what time the star appeared? Verse 8, "And he sent them to Bethlehem and said, Go and search diligently for the young child." Okay, and why young child? Because they understood he wasn't just a little baby anymore. "And when ye have found him, bring me word again, that I may come and worship him also." Verse 9, "When they had heard the king, they departed. And lo, the star which they saw in the east went before them, till it came and stood over where the young child was. Okay. But now, let's continue. Verse 10. When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceeding great joy. When they were come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented unto him gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh. These are what? Presents. You got birthday presents, okay, that they presented, unto him. So this is what you're having. This is what he was getting. So they came into the house and saw the young child there. Okay. Let's continue. Let's get Matthew 2, 12 through 16. Say that because the nativity story make it seem as if he was just born out like in a barn house with animals. So when that isn't necessarily the case. So that wouldn't even be the sanitary thing, most sanitary place to even have a child. So compared to other options that were available, which they did utilize. Get Matthew chapter 2, verse 12 through 16. And it says, and being warned of God in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they departed into their own country another way. Verse 13. And when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, arise and take the young child and his mother, and flee into Egypt. And be thou there until I bring thee word. For Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. Okay, he was being warned. Because Herod, what he understood concerning prophecy and rumors that he's hearing from the Jews, from the Israelites, that, hey, this is the king. The king's son, the Messiah is born. So he's saying this is going to be, again, the fall of his empire, the destruction of his empire. Verse 14, when he arose, he took the young child and his mother by night and departed into Egypt. So now, let's read let's continue on with verse 15. So, and was there until the death of Herod, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken of the Lord by the prophet, saying, out of Egypt have I called my son. And that's important because there was prophecies that were written of in the Old Testament that foretold a coming of a Messiah, of the Messiah that would help save his people. Okay, and this is how they knew and they understood who to look for, what to look for to be able to determine, oh yeah, that's him. So, verse 16. Then Herod, when he saw that he was mocked of the wise men, was exceeding wroth. Like, man, they trying to make a joke out of me. I said they just don't show. They ain't even come back. They should have been here way back. And sent forth and slew all the children that were in Bethlehem and in all the coasts thereof, from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had diligently inquired of the wise men. They were trying to figure out, man, about when was this Christ born? About how old you think he is right now? So he said, all right, so if I got to send this out, I need to make sure all the kids from just 2 years old and under, because right now he might be 1.5, he could be 2. I don't, make sure I ain't taking no chances. But guess what? Most High was smarter. So, Most High, hey, I'm going to protect them. So now, with that being said, we now have a check on learning. Is Christmas a biblical holiday? No. Is it a biblical holy day? No, it is not. Okay? Is Christmas the birth of Christ? No, it is not. What are some of the origins of Christmas? Okay. And sure, paganism. Okay. Paganism. You've seen so many different things. So, hope you guys don't have, any questions. Like I said, there's more on our website, www.soundfaithministries.org, so that you can check out. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can always reach out. Like I said, there'll be more information forthcoming. But I pray all this was insightful and it helped you get a better understanding. Please like, share, and subscribe. Share this information, with your loved ones, that hopefully they'll receive these words with thanksgiving, that they may be able to repent and be more at one with the Most High God. So with that, like I said, my name is Brother Yatab, Bishop here, Sound Faith Ministries, and with that I say Shalom. Okay.